This is my mock draft as of now. It's always changing. This is what I expect in the first. There's a lot of talk that Minnesota wants Drake May, Denver wants J.J. McCarthy, New England needs picks, so I think they're going to trade out. Denver, the New York Giants, the Raiders, they're all looking to try to get a quarterback. But I think Denver is best positioned to move into Arizona's spot, and then they take McCarthy. Then the draft goes as it should. Harrison, Neighbors, Alt, Turner, that's almost a lock. Then Odunze, I think that Arizona is very good at trading back up. They need a receiver. Odunze is the third receiver, and then there's a big drop to Thomas. So I think that Arizona moves up to 9.
Can I say something I'm noticing real quick? Just as a non-draft guy who's a lot of offense on the board. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, ton of it.
It's a lot of offense.
And that's how this draft falls.
Yeah.
10th pick, the Jets, their fans want an offensive lineman, and that would make most sense. But if the Jets continue to act as a GM in serving what they think Aaron Rodgers needs and wants, they're going to take Brock Bowers.
Yep.
Then you go further down and you get into the linemen. And so the corners start going. I think the Raiders with Quinion Mitchell, the Colts with Terry and Arnold, Byron Murphy or the UW tackle guard probably go to the Seahawks. The Rams are looking at an edge more than a tackle to replace Aaron Donald, but they could go either way. So I think Latu versus Byron Murphy, one of those three will be the Rams pick.
Mm-hmm.
For Amarius Mims, that's the guy that Coach and I love.
Latu's a good player.
And shout out to Coach. Yeah, Latu's a great player. High energy, big motor, and a lot of moves.
I can't remember UCLA having an edge rusher like that ever. That guy was good.
It's really rare.
Yeah.
And then you look at this and say, all right, what else do we go with? I think that Philadelphia is going to try to move up for Mims. That's the kind of player that Howie Roseman likes.
Yep.
And Pittsburgh can move down.
Went to Georgia.
And another Georgia Bulldog. Yeah. Miami, Graham Barton fits that offense really well. And so I think that he goes. Then Brian Thomas, the next receiver. Then you get to these green picks, and that's the 5 before the Niner pick.
Okay.
And any of those guys could fall to the Niners, but the way I have it, I don't think they do. M. Patel says Mims huge bust potential. Yes, he's only played 8 games, but in those 8 games, he's dominated. And you look at Mims and say 6'8", 340, 5'07", 40, fluid, plays with very low leverage and power. I think that he's going to do really well. So anyway, you look at this in the Niners and they say, okay, who falls? And I think that they're hoping
Cooper DeJean. No,
they're hoping for Cooper DeJean, but here's the problem. DeJean is
good.
Looking to he's going to work out faster earlier than he thought. He was going to work out in the 15th. He moved it up to the 8th. And that shows the confidence that he has in what he can do to perform for the league. So I think that he's going to bump back up. He could go in the early 20s. He could go by the late 20s, but he's probably gone.
Okay.
But for the Niners, I think that that's somebody that they would definitely look at as a free safety they'd plug in, start right away.
Right.
Kool-Aid is another player that the Niners look at, but Detroit needs DBs. And so
you're drinking the Kool-Aid too, huh? Sorry.
Yeah. And so who falls to 31 for the Niners? Jerjon Newton, the defensive tackle from Illinois. He's
should I pull up the other screen?
Yeah, and then pull up the other screen, and now we go.
Let me see if I can get that.
And here's the decision tree for the Niners in the first round.
Okay, share screen. Decision tree. Share. How's that look?
Okay, can you zoom in?
Let's zoom in. Yep. Where are we looking?
And so go up.
Okay.
First round. And so here are the players the Niners will be looking at 31. Xavier Worthy, JPJ, the center from Oregon, Zach Frazier, the West Virginia center, Jordan Morgan, Kingsley Suamataia, Jerjon Newton, Chop Robinson, if he falls, Darius Robinson, Edgerrin Cooper, the top linebacker, Peyton Wilson, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Nate Wiggins, who I think is going to fall because he's too light, Ennis Rekestra, who's the best run defending corner, and then DeJean and Newman. So for this, I would say that they need to look at Newton if he falls, and he may not.
Okay.
And Cooper is somebody that isn't talked up, but is someone that they could use, a linebacker. Or Kool-Aid. Wiggins, I don't think they would take just because he's too light. Wiggins is not the kind of corner the Niners need. They need a corner that can fill in run defense and blitz. That's not him.
Yeah, they're not going to be playing a lot of man-to-man coverage, so they need more like that kind of stuff.
And so Rekestra, that's a very solid defending corner in terms of run D. I think that he's somebody they could look at. But ultimately, I think that they would look at JPJ or Newton. I would expect them to take Newton. But there's a number of people that
don't
they could
look at linebacker either at Cooper. They definitely need a linebacker, and they took Reuben Foster at that spot. So they would take. I think they would take another one.
They could.
They could.
The concern might be that Cooper is also who Baltimore needs because they lost linebackers that can blitz.
That's
Cooper
true. And they lost Patrick Queen,
in front of him. Yeah.
Yeah. Who's JPJ?
So that's a possibility. Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon.
Powers Johnson.
He's the second-rated center. He's a great athlete. He would be a good fit in the system. He moves well. He's tough. He's physical. And then, Frazier is in the same mold as a former wrestler, so he's very agile. He moves well. He's got a lot of power. But Frazier is expected to go mid-first. JPJ would be late first, early second. Worthy, you can look at Xavier Worthy at wide receiver if you think that he can be a franchise player as a returner. That Worthy was a great returner at Texas. He had a punt return for a touchdown, and he's got the 4.21 speed. So he's a possibility, but I would think that JPJ, Newton, Kool-Aid, and Cooper. And Cooper DeJean if he falls. But I would think that Newton would be the guy that they would look at first. Okay.
Tell me about Morgan and Sumataya.
Jordan Morgan is the guy that Jesse wants to adopt. He loves him some Jordan Morgan. Morgan is very athletic, very smart, a great system fit. He's very good at locking into a guy and then stonewalling him. The problem is that that's great for pass pro, but it's not great for the run game. And Morgan does the same thing in the run game. He'll go at an angle and then he'll lock the guy and stonewall him. He doesn't drive him off the line. And so if you're Kyle, you are a run block first. Are you really going to take Jordan Morgan when he's pass pro first? Probably not.
Yeah.
But if Tyler Guyton drops, Guyton is a good run blocker, very physical, but lacks power, lacks technique, needs a lot of work. So he's a red shirt all the way. Suamataia from BYU, he was a 5-star recruit, went to Oregon, couldn't break through, and then transferred to BYU. He's got power, he's got all the physical tools, but he's never put it together. Technically, he gets beat. So in the practices at Mobile, he would get beat by power, bull rushes. He would get beat by speed if there's faster guys. So it's when he
faces not necessarily an upgrade over Colton McKivitz.
No.
Okay.
It's that if Kingsley puts the technique together, he can easily surpass. It's just he's got the 5-star tools. He's always had them. But throughout his college career, he has not put it together technically. And so are you going to bet on him doing that as a pro? It's a risk. I don't take either one of them. There's a lot of Niner fans that love both of those guys, but to me, that's taking a tackle for the sake of taking a tackle. Don't do it.
Okay, so you think they're going to go interior defensive line in round 1, which is like that's a great bet. Not what I think they should do, but it's the 49ers. Second round, are you looking at offensive tackle there, Rosengarten?
Rosengarten, if he drops. There are some people that have him now in the 40s. There are some people that have him in the 50s. I think that Miami could look at him, that Mike McDaniel could see the same value that Kyle would, that this is someone that fits the system really well, that's good in space, that moves well, that has technical ability, that's got some power. Rosengarten still needs some work to be done, but he would be a good investment as somebody that could potentially take over in season. And if not, then he would be ready to go next year. So I think that Rosengarten is somebody they definitely look at. Blake Corum, who Larry loves. My issue at running back is if the Niners say that we want to hang on, I know you've said they're going to move on from CMC, and they should, but would Kyle? I think Kyle's going to want to keep CMC, and therefore at running back,
Jed traded for him. You heard that, right? Jed pulled the trigger, so he might want to keep him too.
And so with Corum, the issue there is he's 23.
Right.
There's a lot of running backs that are 23, 24. Most of the running backs the Niners are talking to are 20 and 21. And I think that's because they're factoring in that CMC is still going to be the back. And if they take a back now, he needs to be young so that when they do finally let go of CMC, the back's ready to step in, and he's still relatively young and he has a career ahead of him. So for me, I take out the 23 and 24-year-old running backs. That includes Corum.
Larry compared Corum to Emmitt Smith.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, Corum has some great qualities, but he's not Emmitt. Wide receiver Polk and McMillan, those are the Washington receivers. Polk has a lot of ability. It's just that when you're playing with Roma Dunze, you don't really get much of a spotlight.
Oh.
And McMillan was their slot receiver that got hurt. He's got a lot of talent, but his hands are an issue. And then tight end, and here's where the Brock Wright stuff comes in. Jatavion Sanders from Texas, Theo Johnson from Penn State. Both of those guys, you look at it and say, well, they could go at 63. Sanders is dropping. Johnson is rising. And Kyle might say, I need a tight end too.
Yeah.
And he takes one of those guys. It's a possibility.
Then, when they needed a running back and they drafted Trey Sermon, it didn't work out right away. They doubled back the exact next year and took tight of his price, and that didn't work out. So, Cam Latu, early returns aren't so good. I could absolutely see them taking a tight end here.
Yeah, because the pattern is throwing picks at a problem.
Yes.
And here they are. And so Jatavion Sanders plays at Texas, and who is Kyle closest to in terms of a college program? Steve Sarkisian in Texas. And so, like they had the inside word on Brandon Ayuk when they found out from Herm Edwards that Ayuk was really good, and Lynch had a relationship with Herm.
Right.
Kyle has the relationship with Sarkisian. How is that going to factor into this draft? There are Texas players all over. There's Worthy and Mitchell at wide receiver. There's Sanders at tight end. Johnson at tackle. There's a lot of Texas players where that connection may play into the pick. So Sanders is a possibility in that light, given that the Niners had success of getting the inside word from the college coach and a player that fit.
All right, what about round 3?
Round 3, the thing that pops out at me is that initially they thought that Malachi Corley would go in the 3rd. And so you look at all these guys that are capitalized, that's players they have for 30 visits. And therefore, it looks like they're targeting taking a receiver in the 3rd because they're lining up multiple guys to evaluate at that position. If they then bring in Malik Washington for a 30 visit, that makes it even more evident that they're going to take a receiver in the 3rd. The argument that can be made elsewhere is that you've got a lot of talent here, especially at DB. Should you go defensive back in the 3rd if you haven't picked one earlier? And that's the argument that Jesse makes, is that you get guys that are good in zone and press that'll be available in the 3rd. I like Cam Hart from Notre Dame. There's a lot of players there that they could take, but their visits indicate they're locked in, or at least strongly leaning toward taking a receiver in the 3rd. Wow. So Corley is now expected to go in the 40s to 50s. Javon Baker from Central Florida is expected to go around that pick in the 60s. So I would think that Baker would be the guy that they would be looking at most. And then Jerry Rice's son at SC.
They got to take Jerry Rice's son. Have to. Just because.
Don't.
Why?
Kyle is focused on separation. Rice doesn't separate before, at the line or after the catch.
I've never seen Jerry Rice's son play at all.
Oh,
ever.
Well.
But
he's
is it possible? Like, where is his role going to be? Is he just going to be a bust?
I don't think he's going to be a bust. I think that he'll play. It's just
it'll be his role.
He's not going to be his dad in any way.
No, but in round 3, could you get a slot receiver?
Yeah,